Actors of Reddit, what are the conversations like when you're talking in the background of a scene but can't be heard? You generally mouth the words only as they don't want you picked up on the mic from the actual dialogue going on. If you watch background actors, you see them nod a lot at each other and agreeing. Rarely anyone looks like they are having a real heart-to-heart talk. I'm a pianist for musical theater, not an actor, but in the show Breaking Up is Hard to Do, there's a scene where an actor is talking directly to the audience and then the scene flips to other characters talking backstage. As the scene flips, the actor's mic fades out. He turns around to face directly at me and continues to improvise a monologue for about a half minute or so. Every night, it got more and more ridiculous. One night, it was just a stream of never-ending profanity. Thankfully, he chose not to go with that on any actual performances. Our sound crew isn't always on top of things and that would not have gone over well. Meanwhile, elsewhere motherfucking cocksucking crap. Oh, they're doing mammoth backstage. This makes we want to do an R-rating prompts where two movie extras keep meeting and having fake conversations and fall in love only to find out that they aren't anything like their fake extra selves. This is the kind of film that would make my dad cry. Most of the time you just move your lips, pantomiming. What sells the background acting are the gestures, usually small, that make it seem like you and the person you're paired up with are friends and having a good time in the scene you are in. A lot of the time you are listening to the principal actor's dialogue because you may have a cue to exit, cross, or enter on, and those actors whisper talk because they are microphoned, so it's hard to hear them. You have to pay attention to them and where the cameras are. The top two shows, filmed in LA, that are challenging for background actors to work on are 1. Westworld and 2. Code Black. Watch these shows and pay close attention to the background actors in these. They are working their butts off, generally 10 to 14 hours a day. I actually did background for a year or so when I first moved to LA. The conversations run a gamut. Much of the time you don't actually say anything, you're just mouthing words. Other times you'll just say inane things like watermelon over and over, but it does happen. But a lot of the time you're just talking to the other background. It doesn't matter what you're saying, as long as you keep your voices low and don't break character visually, so you're just chatting. Granted, most of these people are one-day friends from diverse, artistic backgrounds, so often your topics will get really weird, really fast. The fact itself that you're on set leads to much of the conversational hilarity. For example, one time I was working on a big crime procedural show and we were doing a rain scene outside of a murder victim's house. So me and 2 other background actors are huddled off to one side of the set under these big rain machines suspended from cranes. Right before they would call action, rain on, then cut, rain off. All we have to do is stay under our umbrella and look gossipy, and we're golden. But of course we're chatting, and to hear each other over the water we had to project a little, even standing 2 feet away from each other. And we're having a conversation about one of the lead actors on the show, a very famous, masculine action star, and making very racy, sexual puns about him. Because, you know, it was 3 in the morning and we're standing out in the fake rain and we were a little punch drunk. And this is what you talk about with new actor friends. They called cut on the latest take. And immediately the assistant director calls over his bullhorn. Background, be quiet. We didn't think anything of it. They'd been saying that for a few takes no matter how low we tried to get our voices. But then he added, the mics are pointing right at you. We shut up immediately. If one of the parabolic mics was indeed pointed in our direction, then a lot of the crew could hear all the butthole zingers we'd been coming up with about their star. Oopsie. We had to film an about us video for my business. The guy shooting the video wanted to do some filler shots, so he told me to just say peas and carrots and move my hands like I was talking. The entire shot looked like I was thinking because my eyes were looking upward and like Ricky Bobby, I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Hold a mug in each hand. I did a promo as a background actor for the mother of a girl I liked who was directing. I didn't know that I was supposed to be miming talking, not making any actual sounds. Every time she stopped and said how she could still hear me through the sensitive mics I would just talk lower, but it wasn't working. I still feel bad about that. Not your fault. The director should have done their job and directed you to be silent. I watched a him and noticed one of the extras at McLaren's. I read her lips. She was hot. Sue me. So you're a background artist. A background artist. You're in the background. Update. Season 6 episode 5 around 3:47. Did background as a job for a year. Sometimes we were hungry and talked about food, or sometimes we had whole fake lives. Once me and Guy caught up and talked about our divorces. Another time I make up stories as your sister still on M when they couldn't hear me lol. On Riverdale me and a group of friends talked about sex the whole time because it was 16-hour day and we were bored. A good friend of mine and I found ourselves talking in the background. It was so hard not to bust up laughing as we mouthed back and forth. But really, my dong is huge, mine too. Takes so long to wash it and crap like that. If I could lip read, this'd make watching shoes so difficult XD. During the party scene of The Sound of Music, the actor playing Captain Von Trapp would walk to each of our little groups and greet us. That is, say something ridiculous, completely in character, while the children talked to Maria downstage. The most memorable was when he said something like, "I've been fricking the Baroness all night, and my penis is so sore," and then disappeared, while we all tried not to die laughing. I like to believe you were a child actor during the filming of The Sound of Music, and Dong Van Dyke Christopher Plummer actually came up to you and said that. I was an extra in a movie during a talking scene. I was in the background with lots of other people talking and the director told us to say the sound woo over and over but make your facial expressions look like you're conversing. So the person I was talking to and I were just going woo woo woo, woo, woo woo woo, woo woo etc. The movie I was in was called Threat by Matt Pizzolo. Sounds like you forgot your ghost speak amulet. I was an extra in the Ken Loach film Looking for Eric and was in the last scene for a second to the frame. It was a graduation scene and I was playing a student. And I had a couple in their mid-50s be my parents. The crap they were coming out with meant they were either method actors or they actually thought I was their son. At the end of the day, the lady seemed straight up offended that everything I told them was bulls. It's called acting. This isn't quite the same thing, but I was in a high school production of Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. I didn't have any lines, but I stood around with my wife in the background through much of the play, so I would quietly talk with her. We had 2 performances and in the first one she told me that when she turned 18 she was thinking about becoming a stripper at the local strip club. I was honestly freaking shocked. I tried to give her reasons why she should maybe not do it. It was everything I could do to try to continue focusing on the play. The second performance I continued trying to talk her out of it, but she full on won me over. She said she wasn't ashamed of her body, she wanted to get through college debt free, and she researched how much she could earn and figured she could cover her school expenses and living expenses for 4 years by working at the strip club a few nights a week. It made sense, and later I learned she did in fact become a stripper, but I don't know if she followed through on her school plans. That was quite the roller coaster. A friend of mine, police officer, was a cop extra in a movie with Diane Lane and Colin Hanks called Untraceable. He was in the background of a scene with Colin Hanks' character talking to him. Colin Hanks produced some oven mitts from somewhere. Conversation was something along these lines. Colin Hanks, you see these oven mitts? I am going to go in the kitchen, turn the oven to about 350 and put these mitts in for about 10 minutes. When they are done warming up I am going to come out here with them and cup your balls. My friend lost it and they had to cut the scene. I can't remember if it is in the actual movie. Acted in live theater in high school. Sometimes we talk about what comes next in the scene song etc. Sometimes we'd just say random words. If we ran the scene over and over in rehearsal, we'd be about it. The last show would get a little gushy, like oh I can't believe it's our last time doing this. It all depended on the day and time. Live theater is different from film because talking quietly adds the background noise, but they do that in post with film. I was a background actor for a little bit. Might be going back to it, but my favorite scene was actually a rave where we had to be completely silent as we danced. They were recording on-site audio for the actors' lines, and the music was to be added in post. So the set director would give us a beat, then we would have to dance in silence with glow sticks and stereotypical rave clothing for up to 5 minutes at a time. Some girl had the brilliant idea to start pushing random people as we were jumping enthusiastically, and it turned into a mini silent pushing competition, attempting to convey things to each other only through facial expressions, and trying so hard not to laugh. Filmmaker here. Well, first off, it's pretty much standard that the extras mouth sentences or random words to look like they are talking in order not to disrupt the actor's lines. Most sets I've worked on, they are mouthing watermelon over and over. Fun fact, scenes where there is music playing and actors are talking on a dance floor are filmed in complete silence. Sometimes they will use a metronome to keep people on beat, but this is rare in my experience. Yeah, I was wondering how they do dancing scenes. The only time I've had to do it, it was an audience watching a concert, so we had to play in the pre-recorded backing track anyway, to sync to later, and we got the one line of dialogue in a close pickup. I'm not sure how I would have solved the rhythm issue if there had been an extended sequence of dialogue. I worked as a background actor in Atlanta for a year. Basically, you can talk about anything and everything if it's an outdoor scene. You get paid to just meet new people. You get paid a regular 8-hour day pay, but any hours over that is time and a half. And if the day goes 14-16 hours, it's double. 70% of the time you get to eat the food the main actors are eating, and it's some of the most delicious stuff I have ever eaten. My favorite story is that I was eating literally the best chicken parmesan of my life on the set of the movie 42 about Jackie Robinson. It's 2012 and I, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, is eating next to me. I have literally zero freaking idea who he is at the time. We're just talking normally and part ways. Few hours later, I see him. Go to say hello, but I am stopped by a 5'3" type A personality with a clipboard and headset asking me, can I help you? I tell her I was headed to wardrobe because I assumed she was stopping me because I looked like someone who just wandered into the movie. As I am saying this, I can see him next to Harrison Ford and a makeup crew. I realized, oh crap, Chad is actually playing Jackie. After I explained myself, she was cool and gave me a sparkling water. Weird day. That type A person was a PA. Most of us are actually pretty chill people. We just have a bunch of people above us breathing down our necks. So when we see a BG headed in what appears to be the wrong direction, it caused massive anxiety. You whisper or mouth words. It doesn't give them good sound otherwise. They take care of background noise with loopers later. Obligatory, not an actor here, but a high school friend went on to be a professional extra to help pay for uni and also learn some industry tips. He was studying film and media. He told me a lot of times, you aren't actually talking, just miming words. He said directors more want background actors to use body language to convey a conversation is happening rather than sound, because the sound gets edited in post-production. Yes. A lot of the times he just mouths words like peas and carrots and pink and purple elephant over and over, but a game director's encouraged to have a proper conversation, just mouths. My friend has mouthed stupid sentences at his conversation partner and often they can't lip read, so the conversation is more likely this: hey, did you know the beaver see the national animal of Canada? Yes, I know that restaurant has some really nice dim sum. Soccer is my favorite sport. What's yours? Oh, I'm not a fan of Ed Sheeran, but I did like that song. Why don't we ever spend time together like we used to? It's because I don't love you anymore. Flips table and moonwalks outdoor. I wish background actors got to do stuff like this frequently. I was in a play and one scene I was supposedly discussing troop positions with the king in the background. I would come up with some ludicrous tactics every time and talk about them at length with a poker face. We're trying the no cavalry method today, sire. Everyone has to nay convincingly or we're doomed. My fellow actor only broke once. True professional. I live in LA, so I run into a lot of extras and would-be actors. A lot of them have told me that when conversing in the background, they're not actually making any noise. For the most part, we just pantomime talk. If we talk for real, it distracts the audience from the scene. If we do need to talk, we usually come up with a semi-scripted event and follow around that. However, this is just me and her experience. I was told to act natural with my friend for a promotional advert, and we literally just had a conversation about how unnatural it is to try to act natural. I did the same thing when my buddy and I were put in a Bruins commercial at a local dive. How delicious and refined the drink is, speaking pompously as if we were connoisseurs. Mugs are almost always empty, and wine is the cheapest, grossest grape juice you can find. This was for a play, not a movie though, so we were actually expected to talk. My dad did background for a movie when my sister first started acting. He was in after the funeral scene, so everyone had to look like they were really torn up. My dad said he and the other guy he was talking to talked about sports and other random crap, all while whispering and shaking their heads every once in a while. Rhubarb, 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 fellatio, rhubarb, fellatio, 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 rhubarb, fellatio, fellatio, rhubarb, fellatio, fellatio, rhubarb, dong monkey. I don't know if this is a question of not, but my answer is yes. Once during a Walla session, background chatter Fulvo, the lights went off in a scene so the crowd had to sound surprised. I yelled who touched my butt loudly enough for the director to notice. I got more actual auditions after that. I was an extra for an Irish soap opera a couple of times. The only direction we got was to be silent, mouth our words, and don't do it at the same time. With multiple takes, you found that your silent conversation started to become alive. Your follow-on from the other person's facial body reactions actually got kind of difficult to do it over and over again, almost like you'd run out of things to say, but you'd enter a flow and each conversation would get closer to identical. I was paired once with this girl who got told off for overacting. She was mental, making a big deal of every emotion, Joey and Friends style. Thought this was her chance to get noticed, like anyone's going to notice her gobbling down a burger in a diner in Fair City. I do professional theater work. It varies, but typically we get into silly role plays in the background, especially for a play with a longer run. You start to develop deep character stories for your random background person and play out random narratives with your castmates. Anything to keep it interesting. Oh, and the peas and carrots thing ends after high school. Once you go pro, you try to at least improvise something vaguely real. Keeping things interesting is a big battle. Also fun when you play multiple characters and they're all vastly different or somehow the same person through a deep subplot that never makes it to the audience. I wouldn't have lasted a whole summer of doing a Revolutionary War drama if all we said was watermelon and rutabaga. I was in a background for a movie once and I just was talking to the guy next to me about our mutual love of B movies and how cool it was to finally be in one. When me and my friend were on stage together during a scene where we had to make conversation in the background, we would argue about how to pronounce GIF. I was on a show where a major actor was told to ad-lib his lines in Japanese. He was talking in the background, but his dialogue was in nearly every scene. They were going to translate it and add subtitles later. Not a single member of the crew spoke Japanese. He stood in front of us saying things like, "Hey, these bastards have no idea what I'm saying. I could be saying anything at all. Please laugh now so they'll think I'm doing a good job." They did not subtitle his lines. So one show, another actor and I are in the background reading what are meant to be museum catalogs but are actually copies of After 50. Beyond the simple joke of that magazine being read by a couple actors in their early 20s, she soon points out another page and says, "I think I have to go to this, and I want you there with me." I glance over. She's pointing at an ad for a prostate clinic. Just before a cue happens in the scene in front of us requiring all but one actor to freeze. I look up to see her giving me a crap-eating grin and have to force myself not to laugh and break the scene. It's one of my most treasured memories on stage. I'm a professional stage actor and it depends. Sometimes we're just mumbling gibberish. Sometimes we kind of develop our own lines. Some actors like to remain in character and talk about the action of the show. Sometimes we just have real conversations. Sometimes we're saying ridiculous stuff trying to make each other laugh. The last show I did had a very long and tedious scene with a small group of us in the background. We played hand charades under the table where the audience couldn't see. I've worked a decent amount of background, but the funniest is dance or club scenes. They played the first couple seconds of Funky Town so we'd be on the same beat, then everyone has to dance in silence, a bunch of awkward bodies bumping to the tune of shuffling feet. If we're supposed to be talking, we usually improv something like, OMG, you look fantastic after your abortion. What's your secret on the traffic pattern run through? Then mouth a similar conversation on a take. We background actors are aboard. Dark humored people. Usually it's either, do you think they'll be breaking for lunch soon? I don't know. What do you think will be on the menu etc etc. Or, do you think they'll let us go home soon? I'm cold, hungry, tired, bored. Source, have done extra work. Everyone repeating watermelon and peas and carrots over and over. Is no one casually silently quoting song lyrics or reading the script of B-movie and waiting for a viewer to discover this? I do stage acting as opposed to movies, but we usually just have a conversation in character. Depending on the show you can sometimes be a little silly. I did a show where one of the musical numbers was a boy fantasizing about working at a hospital amongst sexy nurses. So anytime the song cut to dialogue, me and the other nurses had to talk in the background. Would talk about ongoings in the hospital like a patient who spontaneously combusted. Watermelon cantaloupe is what my drama teacher had to say. Gives a nice range of mouth movement so it appears more like natural speech. I've been an extra in a film, and the hardest part is talking silent. That's how it was done on this film, and keeping the conversation going back and forth. This guy and I would just talk silently, and then when one of us would near the end of our point he would do a head or wrist signal so that the other would know that when the talking stops it's time for him to start, and so on. Little games can then develop where you're trying to screw with each other because you have no idea what the other is saying. So really you can say whatever you want and use little hand gestures to indicate what you're saying. And if you decide to talk about something random or obscene, it's basically challenging the other not to laugh when they realize what you're talking about. Good time. It depends on your relationship with the other actor around you. In my experience, sometimes we're being super inappropriate and saying things like you're cute, wanna frick nice tea. One time I was in a scene like that with this huge guy who was like 3 times my size with huge muscles, and I was supposed to be cursing him out in the background. Sometimes I'd be saying, I will murder your soul, I will destroy you, and sometimes I'd be all kittens and puppies and rainbows you're he. Sometimes it's just gibberish. You never know. Stage actress. Just hobby. Didn't have the ambition to pursue it big time. And the theaters here are generally small enough that you need to actually just have a conversation because some of the audience in the front can hear bits and pieces. Last show I was in had a ton of workplace downtime constantly in the background. One actress liked to just be about everybody else on stage, endlessly. Another liked to point out fashion advertisements in a magazine, so we chatted about that. Nothing revolutionary or groundbreaking, just people aimlessly filling the space in different ways. But man, that bitcher, I was freaking worn out after that run finished. I know you think everybody else in the cast sucks. I know you didn't like your costume. I know. Oh crap. Remember to smile. Not exactly the answer, but I figure y'all will find it funny. In a production of Les Mis we had a rotating barricade. When Gavroche climbed over to go get bullets, we had to stay perfectly still as it rotated, because there was a gap and you could see foot movement. This meant we could still move our upper bodies. So while this kid is picking up bullets, we're aiming our guns at him behind the barricade, pretending to be shooting him. Try not to laugh when someone mouths "I got him," and you realize it was the guy who played Grantaire. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.